Hey, what is going on, Cancers? Butch Tarot here. I am going to do your a general read. Your general read. It is a general read, so it may not resonate with everyone. It is for your Sun, Moon, Rising, and your Venus. For all you cross watchers, roles can be reversed. Always feel free to comment down below. First, I'm going to pull an oracle card from the Earth and Bone Oracle. Universe, give us a card for Cancer. Blood Moon, illusion, uncertainty, narcissism. All right, with all that being said, let's get it. Universe, what message do we have for Cancers? What's going on for Cancer? What can you show me for Cancer? Get two more shuffles for Cancer. All right, Cancer. So the first thing is that this is definitely someone I feel like you already have a connection with, and I feel like with this person, I mean, there's a lot of hot and cold energy with this person. You know, and I feel like there's a lot of internal struggle when it comes to this person. I mean, it feels like this person is pulling away or has already pulled away. But they're not telling you. You know, they're not telling you they're pulling away. They're not, you know, it's just the vibe you get from this person. Like, you feel like this person is not invested in this. You know, and I feel like your intuition is telling you that, but I feel like you don't want to hear what it's saying. I mean, who wants to hear the news? But I mean, your intuition is telling you they're hiding something from you. You know, but the thing is when someone is done or someone is not wanting to be in a relationship, you assume that they would just exit. You know, they would just leave. But this person doesn't leave, and that's where it gets complicated. That's where that internal struggle is. There's a part of you that believes this, you know, because they haven't left, is because there's still something here for them. I don't feel like that's true. I just feel like, I mean, I feel like this person may already be involved or trying to be involved with someone else or looking for someone else. You know, and like I said, I mean, here we have you, and I feel like this may not be the first time this person's betrayed you. Because I feel like this feeling of defeat, like this isn't your first rodeo with this person. You know, late nights anxiety, because I feel like you truly cared with this person. I feel like you love this person and you give them all your love, and the more that you give them, the less they appreciate it. But like I said, they're still there. So it's almost like giving you a false sense of hope. Even though, I mean, they're still there, but like I said, I don't feel like I feel like you already know that you can't trust them. You know, hoping that one day things will work out and things will come together, and you know, this will all be just a bad dream. Three of Wands reverse. I don't see that happening. You know, I don't see what you're waiting for coming, and I don't see any big changes in this connection. Like I said, for some of you, this person may already be involved with someone else, because I am feeling a third-party energy, or at least they're open to the idea. You know, they're keeping their options open. You know, that's not the love that you deserve. You know, like that saying, you know, we accept the love that we think we deserve. You deserve so much better than this. And I feel like this person giving you any kind of false hope is just, you know, like the blood moon, narcissism. Last one, I feel like there's a very narcissistic energy with this person. I mean, emotionally, I feel like this person walked away. So, I mean, it does tell us that at one point there was a connection. You know, but I feel like when this person finally decided, you know, that there wasn't anymore, or this person, they didn't tell you because they needed you. I feel like you do a lot for this person. I feel like you give a lot to this person. I feel like you're always giving to this person. And the more you give, the less they gave back. They just got very complacent. And they got to a point where they needed you. But I don't feel like this person's aligning with you. I don't feel like they're trying to. With a Star card and the Page of Pentacles. You know, I don't feel like this person is putting in any effort at all. You know, and I feel like you need to know that you deserve more. I mean, Cancers are so loving, and they have a lot of love to give, but, you know, in this type of connection, it's like if you had $10,000 and you took the $10,000 and threw it in the toilet and flushed it. You know, that's what it feels like with this person. Everything you give to them, you're not getting back. You know, you want to invest in something that pays back. And I don't mean monetarily. I mean, you want to love someone and give them all your undivided love to someone that's giving it back to you, that deserves it. You know, I just don't think you're on the same page. And I feel like this person isn't going to tell you what needs to be said, because, you know, they're keeping it hidden from you. You know, the Seven of Pentacles in reverse, I don't feel like you're on the same page at all. The Two of Swords, I feel like you're not seeing what's right in front of you because they don't want you to see it. I feel like you are feeling it, though. I feel like you may not want to believe what you're feeling, but trust your intuition, like I said with the High Priestess. I mean, you know, once you see this for what it is, it'll be a blessing in disguise. You know, that's when I feel like this transformation for you is going to happen. And like I said, I mean, I feel like this person, anytime that you bring up anything to this person, they're always going to make you feel like you're overthinking. They're going to make you feel like you did something wrong. And that's the narcissistic quality right there. That's that, you know, this gaslighting energy. Like whenever you bring up something, like, you know, whether it be, why don't you take me on dates? Why don't you show me love? Why aren't you showing up for me? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? They're making you feel like you're just nagging them. So they're making you feel bad about asking real questions. That's their way of keeping you under thumb. And like I said, carrying on down this road, you're gonna get hurt. And the last thing a Cancer wants to do is get hurt. They don't want their heart broken. And you don't deserve to have your heart broken. This person doesn't deserve to be the one to break your heart. You know, I just feel like with this person, like I said, you have a lot of questions and they don't have any answers. You know, I feel like they need you, so they keep you around. And I don't like telling anybody, I don't like giving these reads where this is what the read is, but I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you and tell you rainbows and butterflies are flying, you know, and everything's going to be okay. And miraculously, this relationship's going to fix itself. I don't feel comfortable telling people that. I tell you what I see. And what I see is someone that doesn't deserve you. I mean, I don't feel like they're going to change. You know, I feel like this person, they manipulate, they use, and they're draining you of your energy. They're draining you of your love. And like I said, it's like having $10,000 and throwing it down the drain, rather than just going and, you know, taking the $10,000, renting yourself a nice suite with a nice jacuzzi. You know, there's better things to do with your love. You know, this person doesn't deserve an ounce of it. But like I said, it is complicated, and it can be complicated, especially when this person, I don't feel like they're walking away. Like there's this hot and cold energy, there's in and out, but they're not out. So it's giving you a false sense of hope. You know, I just feel like this person is just looking for the next one to dig their claws into, and when they find it, they won't even give it a second thought. You know, like I said, I feel like once you see this person for who they are, you know, with that hangman, once you see this person for who they really are and what they're really doing, that's when we can finally move on. And that's when that transformation happens. And that's when there's that rebirth for you. That's when we can have a fresh new start. You know, the sooner we find out the person we're with is the wrong person, the sooner we can move on. That's the silver lining I got for you in this. That's the only silver lining. You know, there's always a silver lining. I truly believe that. I'm an optimist. You know, the sooner we find out one person isn't the one for us, we can cross that person off our list. Like I said, there's just a toxic energy with this person. You know, I do feel like that at one point there was feelings. You know, I feel like this person is so out of balance. You know, we have the Justice card in reverse. I just feel like they're so out of balance, and I feel like they can't give you what you want. And at some point, they realize that. They just didn't tell you. You know, so they're playing this little game. You know, they're energy vampires. They're love vampires. They're just sucking the love and the energy out of you. And for some of you, you know, as I'm talking, you already knew what I was going to say. I feel like you had a feeling. For others, sometimes we don't want to think that way about people that we love, but sometimes it's what's best for us. Sometimes it's hard to see the ones we love the way they really are. I mean, with this person, we have Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, Gemini, and Aquarius, Capricorn, Virgo. We have Scorpio, and Cancer. It's some people just aren't ready for it. Some people aren't ready for real love. Like I said, I feel like at one point this person and you had a connection, and I feel like this person, it got to a point where they couldn't give you any more, and you were giving them more, and they just kept taking it rather than just be real with you. Some people are just who they are, and we can't change them. Only that right person can change them. And sometimes they never meet that right person because they're so far gone. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like with this person, they're just thinking about themselves because they're not being real with you. They're not being fair to you. Sometimes we get relationships that were never meant to last. Sometimes the people that we're with, no matter how much we love them, if they don't love us back, then we're gonna get hurt. They're not gonna get hurt because they don't have that connection. So the only possible outcome is you getting hurt, and the longer we hold on to it, the more it's gonna hurt. It's like I told this story before. I don't know if I told the cancer video. It's a story my nan used to tell me when I was a kid. It's a scorpion and the frog. If you've heard it, I'm sorry, but anyway. So there's this frog, and he's just chilling by this stream. And then there's a Scorpio coming up, and he wants to get on the other side of the stream, and he can't swim. So he sees this frog, and he goes at the frog, and he says, "Hey, frog, I'll get on your back. Can you swim me over across the water?" He's like, "No, you'll sting me." He said, "I'm not going to sting you. I want to get across the water. Why would I sting you?" He goes, "Well, if you do sting me, we'll both drown." He said, "Why would I want that?" So the frog, against all his thoughts, he said, "Okay." So the scorpion climbed on his back. Halfway across, the scorpion stings the frog. And as they're both sinking, the frog says to the scorpion, "Why would you sting me? Now we're both going to drown." He said, "Because I'm a Scorpio. That's what we do. I'm a scorpion. That's what we do." Scorpio. Sorry, Scorpios. I'm a scorpion. That's what we do. So it's just his nature. What a traumatic story to tell a kid. I remember her telling me that when I was a kid. But the point of the story is some people are just who they are, even if it's not in their best interest. Anyway, sorry, I feel like I should refresh myself on the story because I feel like it didn't flow very well. I like stories that flow, and that didn't flow. Anyway, be good. Take care. Stay safe.